So, the simple answer to the question as to whether or not what is going on between Prospect and the Attorney General, and I guess I will summarize it in terms of, as you are all aware, the Prospect had filed a change of effective control because there was going to be a sale of Leonard Green Partners interest to Lee and Topper, and they were seeking a change of effective control. Prior to the settlement being reached, we, the union, the Attorney General, a number of parties, either, I guess we could say, either objected or at least responded with questions or issues related to that change of effective control. As part of the settlement that I entered into with Prospect and Angel Pension, one of the conditions of the settlement was that we would withdraw and no longer press our objection to that change of effective control. That happened. But what ended up happening is some of the concerns that had been raised prior to our exiting were continued through, for the most part, the Attorney General's office and the Department of Health. The Attorney General being more concerned with the financial impact of the hospitals, whereas the Department of Health side of the change of effective is, will care still be provided at the same level that it had been in the same way it had been. Without getting into too much detail as to what ended up happening, the Attorney General was asking for certain information. And when it came time to actually deal with that application, it appears, from what I read in the news, that the Attorney General asked Prospect to post, I think, a minimum $150 million escrow. And what the news said on that, and again, I'm going off of probably the same things that you guys read, was that the reason for that is that there was some concern by the Attorney General regarding the financial health of the hospitals in light of this transaction. From what I understood, it's because the Attorney General felt that they didn't get proper information from Prospect or enough information. I don't know which, or if it's a combination of the two. So as a result, the Attorney General said post $150 million. Prospect did not like that response. Their immediate reaction was to say, if you're going to require us to do that, we're going to shut down the hospitals and stop operations at both Roger Williams and St. Joe's. And again, I'm summarizing from what I saw in the news. So this is not firsthand knowledge. This is the same type of knowledge that comes off of the news. What the Attorney General then said was, if you want to do that, if that's your threat, go ahead and do it, and we'll see how that goes. And then Prospect withdrew their application for a change of effective control and then filed a motion in Superior Court asking that the financial report from the independent advisor utilized by the Attorney General be sealed and not be made public. I don't know if that hearing went forward. I don't know what the result of it was, if there was a settlement. But at the end of the day, my understanding, again, reading from news stories, is that the Attorney General said, not so fast. Just because you withdrew the application doesn't necessarily mean that I still don't want to look at this and still am not going to require the $150 million escrow. When all of this started happening, and I was looking at this the same way that you guys were from the outside, kind of watching it unfold and happen, my immediate reaction was $150 million is a lot of money. They just promised to pay me 30. And so each one of you might be a little concerned as to how does a potential obligation of $150 million impact the $30 million payment that they've agreed to pay us, if at all. And my short answer to that is, it is unlikely, as far as I'm concerned, that any of what you are reading in the paper with regard to the Attorney General, Prospect, and the change of effective control application will have any impact on the settlement. It is highly unlikely. We structured the settlement in a way to protect and to make sure that those funds would be available, even if there were problems financially for Prospect or if anything happened. So I believe that we tied up the settlement in a way that protected the pension plan and protected those funds from coming in, or protected that those funds would come in.
Sure.
That said, Prospect has asked for some, and this is in connection with not only my receivership, so the pension plan, but also Tom Hemmendinger's liquidating receiverships, where he is overseeing the wind down of the old legacy hospitals, the old St. Joe's and the old Roger Williams. Prospect has asked for our assistance on some things to make revisions to certain internal documents. I will tell you that I don't know, I'm still assessing what, if any, impact those changes would have on the settlement. Obviously, if I believe that the request that they're making will impact the settlement in an adverse way, I will not agree to do it. I'm under no contractual obligation to do it. It's not part of the settlement that I have to do this. But if I find that what they're asking is not only reasonable, but also has no impact on us, then I'd have no problem in cooperating and doing what they need to do so that they can comply with whatever laws or regulations that they have to comply with, to the extent that they aren't right now. The problem for me at this point is that I've asked Prospect through Max Wistow for information and answers to certain questions so that I can better understand what it is exactly that they need us to do. Both me, Tom Hemmendinger, the class plaintiffs in the federal lawsuit, all are involved in this. And to date, I haven't gotten what I would consider to be enough sufficient information to make that assessment. As the communications have been going on at a rapid pace, and it continued all through this weekend. And I've had calls right up and through about an hour ago on this. So it is unlikely that anything that is going on with that will impact the settlement. To the extent that Prospect needs assistance from me and Tom Hemmendinger and other parties to help them do whatever it is they need to do, whether it's a legal issue, a compliance issue, I don't know what, then we'll assess it. But right now, I just don't have enough information to be able to report to anybody, the judge or you, as to whether or not I have any level of comfort. Well, I don't have enough information to give any level of comfort to do or ask if I can do what they're asking. Because quite frankly, at this point, I don't even really understand what they're asking because I haven't gotten answers to the questions that I've asked. So my point in having this call is to inform you of those activities, because there is a potential, albeit slight, that it could impact the settlement, and to take any questions. And of course, as always, to the extent that I can answer it, I will.
Good, thank you.
If
Don't turn it off,
involves
Al.
the litigation, I'll probably
good,
have
thank
to
you.
refrain from.
Steve, could we get everybody to mute, please? There's a lot of background noise going on.
Let me see. I might be able to mute everybody. Hold on. Oh, no. There should be a place for me to mute everybody. I muted myself just now, but that doesn't do it good. Oh, mute all. There we go. All right. I think that's muted everybody but me. So, so as I stated, I don't have enough information right now to even completely and fully explain what they're asking. Never mind whether or not what they're asking me to do would be something that would, I feel, would compromise the settlement or kind of start a chain reaction off that caused problems with the settlement. That obviously is my main concern. At the end of the day, at this point, I don't really care what Prospect does or doesn't do with regard to their operations. And I mean that in more of a general sense, not specific, but because my issue is the settlement and making sure that the monies that have been committed to the plan, i.e. the $30 million, come into the plan, assuming that Judge Smith approves it, which I've got no reason to believe he won't, that those monies come into the plan and can benefit the plan, which is to benefit you and continue your pensions. So that's where we stand right now. Financially, we are at about $67 million right now. Obviously, that money comes in net of fees. That brings in another 23 or so million. So that would put us somewhere in the vicinity of about 90, which is right in the range of what I've been telling you guys. I think the last time we spoke, it was like 91 or 92, but obviously we've had some payments go out and things like that. The PBGC premium has been paid and things of that nature. And just to remind you guys, the PBGC premium is an annual premium that every year runs right around like it's 1.6, $1.7 million. And that payment's due in April. So we just paid that about a month ago. With that, I will open it up to questions from anybody. I do have, please mute your mic. So, okay. So you can either put a question in the chat box, or if you want, I can unmute if you ask me to unmute you. I only have a few faces on my screen. I have more non-video. Mike's laptop wants one. Let me see. I asked you to unmute, Mike. There you go.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
All right.
So what are the implications of the change of venue or change of effective control, even though they've withdrawn it? What would the implications be for them or for anybody?
Yeah, it's really, that's a state issue. So I want to make sure that everybody understands that whether the change of effective control application was granted or not granted at this point, it would not impact the settlement that I made at all. What they are seeking to do under Rhode Island law, when there is a substantial change of control of a hospital, and they define substantial, I believe it's 50% or more, then the state requires to go through an application process to not only identify who the new controlling owners will be, but what their plan is and provide financials and things like that. So in the case of Prospect, Leonard Green Partners is the owner of a percentage interest in Prospect, and which includes the St. Joe's and Roger Williams hospitals. And Leonard Green Partners is looking to sell its interest to Lee and Topper, who are also current owners, but obviously they would have a much larger percentage of ownership because Leonard Green would be exiting. So under state law, they've got to get approval for that change in ownership. At the, I think it was the Health Services Council, which is an advisory board to the Department of Health, and obviously under this circumstance also is to the AG. They preliminarily approved the change of effective control, and then it would leave it up to the regulators, the Department of Health and the Rhode Island Attorney General, to give the final approval with conditions. And the Attorney General, I think, came out first and said, we will approve conditioned upon, and one of the conditions, it wasn't the only one, but one of the conditions was the issuance of $150 million escrow, which my understanding, and again, it's from reading news stories, is that that was a number that the Attorney General believed would be sufficient to protect the financial welfare of the hospitals if the financial information provided, or the lack of financial information provided, ended up showing that the hospitals did not have enough money to operate. That escrow was there to assist. So if they either were not as forthcoming as the AG wanted, or didn't put something in there, the AG had this $150 million escrow, which would operate the hospitals for a period of time. I don't know how long the AG had calculated that as, or where that number actually came up from. But that's in essence what it is. Any hospital that is looking to change ownership, this isn't whether it goes to for-profit or not-for-profit. This is purely an ownership, a control issue, has to go through an effective change of control application with the Attorney General and Department of Health.
Thank you.
Sure. Let me see. I've got, is today's meeting mostly about the focus of getting prospect settlement squared away for the expected July 20th hearing? It's today's meeting is mostly focused on a discussion and getting some clarity and I guess comfort for you that the comings and goings between the AG and Prospect, which really seem to be a little bit of a battle, that those have either none or very, very little impact on our settlement. The July hearing in front of Judge Smith is still going forward. That has not been postponed, continued, or derailed in any way because of what is happening with the Attorney General and Prospect. And I don't expect that it will, because those two things have nothing to do with it. But I do want to address it because anything that involves Prospect and money in the state of Rhode Island, my ears perk up because of the settlement. And so I figured your ears would perk up.
Sure.
I have a question here. Is the contact to Jay Zekany? Yes, from Deborah. Contact, that is Julie's address. And if you email her, that is, she can help you out. Any other questions from anybody? Marilyn. And then, okay.
My instant reaction to this, when I read it in the paper, was what is Prospect hiding? Because it was my understanding that they put like an order against the Attorney General that he could not make public the information that they sent him.
That's what they asked, yes.
What was in that they don't want anybody to know?
I don't know. I haven't seen it yet, so I can't tell you.
No,
what
I know
was
you
in it.
haven't seen it, but that's like a red flag sitting.
Yeah,
up.
no, the implication, obviously the implication, I don't know anymore. I just said, I don't know really any more, Marilyn, than you do on this. But the implication is that the Attorney General saw it, and the Attorney General asked for $150 million escrow based on what he saw. Prospect pulled their application as a result of it, and then filed a motion to ask that it not be made public, which it could just be, we're a for-profit company that has competitors out there and we don't want this financial information to be public, or it could be something else. At the end of the day, all I know is what you know, is that the Attorney General saw it, asked for the 150, and Prospect pulled their application and then said, we do not want to make that public. So I can sit and hypothesize about all the reasons why they would want to keep it private, some which are bad, some which are completely reasonable and have good business sense to them. And both because this really isn't the forum, as well as because I do have a settlement I can't surmise. If I see the report or it's released, then I'll read it and I'll have my opinion as to why. I'll have a better opinion why Prospect.
No, forget it.
Want to ask a question?
Yeah, but
I don't, as far as them asking you for help, I don't trust them as far as I can see them. And I think they got a hell of a nerve asking you for help.
Well, I know
what they did to us.
I will say this, Marilyn, that I hope you can imagine that the questions that have been asked by our side, I'll call it our side, because it has been funneling primarily through Max, but we have all been weighing in, are very, very relevant. And it is, there has been a very high level of distrust between, I guess, our side of the fence and Prospect side of the fence. So while their requests could be completely benign, I don't have enough information. And until I have all the information, I have to, as far as I'm concerned, I can't do anything without asking Judge Stern's approval to do it. And I'm not going to waste my time or his time or anybody's time asking for that approval until I have a level of comfort. And the negotiations between myself and Prospect have been such that I'm not willing to take their word on anything. I want to see it in black and white.
Good,
Okay,
thanks.
sure. Go, I just unmuted you, Deb, or I asked you to unmute.
No, she's not
Oh,
unmuted.
nope, you're not. You have to unmute, Deb.
Okay. Hi, Steve.
There you go.
Hi. I have a question. I'm a little confused, so I wanted to make a little understanding. Initially, when you were explaining stuff, you were saying that there was a special counsel that had sealed information. Was that the information obtained through the Attorney General's office by that special counsel?
Yeah, it's an advisor. So going through the change of effective control application, both the Department of Health and the Attorney General typically in these proceedings, in these regulatory proceedings, hire independent advisors to look at independently certain information. The Attorney General hired an independent advisor to review the financials of prospects so that the Attorney General could have a level of comfort on, I guess, the financial impact, I guess it would be, of the change of effective control. Once Lee and Topper are put in place as controlling, how does that impact the financial viability of these hospitals? And that was my understanding. That's what the advisor provided a report to the AG on. And that's private for the AG until it's made public by the AG. And that's what Prospect has asked not to be allowed to be made public.
Okay, so you're saying that the effective control was withdrawn. So you're saying that the Green withdrew his desire to sell to Topper and Lee?
I am telling you that the application which would have approved on the Rhode Island level, the exit of Leonard Green Partners has been withdrawn. So Leonard Green is still an owner of the hospitals and cannot withdraw as an owner unless it's approved by the state regulatory agencies, Department of Health and the Attorney General. So as of right now, I don't know what the transaction is between Prospect and Leonard Green. All I can tell you is that part of that transaction would have required Leonard Green's interest to be removed out of Rhode Island, and that's not happening right now. So I don't know what impact it's going to have on the ultimate transaction. I can just tell you that as far as Rhode Island's concerned, Leonard Green Equity Partners is still a partner and owner of Prospect Medical Holdings or Roger Williams, St. Joe's, whatever the entities are.
Okay, so, but he's still trying to sell to Topper and Lee.
I don't know the status of that transaction based on what has happened here. Because it wasn't just the Rhode Island hospitals, it was other ownership interest in Prospect. And so I don't know if they carved it out, if they're still going forward with it. I don't know what they're doing with it.
I'm wondering if that delay is because of the fact that that Prospect now wants some unknown information from us. I'm wondering if that's in any correlation with that.
You mean from this receivership, you mean?
Yeah, I'm wondering if that was, you don't know what the status is for Green regarding selling. It's on the back burner, but in the meantime, you got Prospect trying to ask us some information. So I'm wondering if there's a correlation between those two entities, between that agenda.
Let me clarify. They're not asking me for information. They're asking me to sign off on some things. Me and Tom Hemmendinger to sign off on. They need to make some changes to their internal documents, the documents that control the operations of Prospect, at least the hospitals. And they're asking for our sign off on those. So they're not asking me for information. They're just saying, can you sign and say that you don't object to us doing this? Which my response is if it's appropriate for me to sign off on it, I will, but you need to give me the information that's going to make me comfortable it's appropriate for me to do.
I don't understand why they would ask that now after we already got a $30 million settlement. I think that would have been addressed prior to the settlement if they wanted us to sign off on anything that is legit or something.
That point has been raised exactly.
Right,
that if this is not this can't be a new issue.
right.
And
That's
this had to have been known or possibly known or came up before May of or late April of 2021. So whether it was an issue that they knew about as we were negotiating the settlement, or it was an issue that came up immediately after we had negotiated the settlement, it certainly didn't just come up a couple of weeks ago, which is when we started going back and forth on this.
I smell a rat.
So, well, that's
I do. I
That's
smell
why
a
in
rat. I
response
don't
to
trust
Mara-
Prospect at all.
I'm
And
not going to
Marilyn's
say I
correct.
smell a rat because I can't do that. You can say that. I can't say
I
that.
smell a fat rat.
But what I'm going to say is that it's that sentiment that had made me answer the question the way that I did
Right.
with Marilyn, that I'm not going to do anything unless I have all the information. I'm not going to take anybody's word on anything. If I'm going to sign off, and keep in mind, it's not just me. Tom Hemmendinger has to be comfortable. Max has to be comfortable. There's a couple of other attorneys that are involved that have to be comfortable with it. And if one of us is comfortable, but the others are not, or flip that, if everybody but one is, then it doesn't happen.
And you don't even know what it is.
Not completely at this point.
When are you going to find out?
Well, that's what I'm trying to get the information for. As soon as they provide the information, like I said, there have been emails going up until about an hour ago. Phone calls. I've been on the phone with Max more than I care to on a weekend. And
They might, you know what? I bet you they may threaten to close the hospitals.
They already did.
I know that, but I know they did. But I'm saying they could think of this as another outlet to use. Oh, well, if we don't sign off and do this with our pension, then we're not gonna. It's like they're dangling. I don't trust them. Something's fishy.
Well, I'm to the point on they're going to use it as, I think what you're saying is leverage against me.
Yeah.
The 30 million that they pledged to us is paid for and secured at this
Okay.
point.
And I know the
So-
other meeting you had said you were putting it in a secure account. So even if
It's in a letter of
Prospect-
credit.
It's a what?
It's a pledged letter of credit with Chase Bank.
Okay, so that means if they decide to go bankrupt, that our 30 million is secured for our pension, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and I wonder how soon we're going to find out this information. This is interesting.
Well, that's why I wanted to do this meeting, which is sooner than we typically do, to give you
Right.
the information. And if something comes up in the next couple of weeks, we'll do another one.
That's awesome. It was
I
weird
wanna
because
make sure.
your letter came and I'm saying, oh, it must be in a few weeks. And I just opened it this afternoon and said, wow, it's tonight. And I'm
Oh,
saying,
yeah.
this is early. So that's why my antennas went up and I said, something's up.
I'm disappointed that you weren't excited that you were going to see me so soon.
I'm glad to see you soon. I wish I could give you a hug right now. This is stupid. I can't wait for us to meet and see each other again because I miss everybody.
I know.
I miss everybody in many ways, and we've been through so much. I mean, 2017, we've been going through this.
I know.
August 17th.
August will be the
27
4-year
yeah.
anniversary.
Right, August 17th of 2017. This is insane.
Yeah.
Wow. But I hate Prospect, what they did to us. They're dirty. They're dirty. And I've heard of physicians that got out of charter care because they know how dirty Prospect is. They know how dirty Prospect is. And it's weird now. Care New England is with Lifespan. And
Well,
a lot
they're
of
trying to. That hasn't been
Yeah.
approved yet.
yeah, well, a lot of these doctors were with care with charter care, ended up staying. They went to the Care New England.
Yep.
Because I think they smell a rat too down the road.
Yeah.
That's what I think. Well, how long is that going to take to merge? Do you know?
The
that's
FTC has to approve it. And my understanding is that the deadline for the FTC approval, not that they necessarily have a deadline, but if they don't issue a letter within 30 days, which I think is right about now, then it's kind of an indication that they may not want it to happen. And then they have any amount of time that they can. So it's one of those things where they could just kind of push it off their desk for a long time. It's, you know, I don't want to get into that issue, but that's a significant issue for the state of Rhode Island and healthcare,
Right.
because that would be an 80% market share for lifespan, which is.
And that's for
substantial.
profit. That's for
That's
profit.
it.
That's for profit?
No, those are two not-for-profit agencies.
Okay, okay.
Yep.
Got it.
And
Steve,
I've got a
I
question.
appreciate you, meeting with us and letting us being aware sooner rather than letting us worry in hand. I appreciate it.
That's what I'm trying to be here for.
Thank you.
So hopefully I'm not making you more nervous.
No, I'm
I've
putting the puzzle pieces together.
All right. I've got a question on chat. Is the negotiation with the Diocese of Providence still ongoing? Meaning, is there still hope for a settlement with them? There is still hope for a settlement with them, but I don't have any negotiations currently going on with them. They have not made any offer. We haven't sat down. There hasn't been anything like that. So that doesn't mean the phone lines aren't open. And there is always in litigation a chance for settlement. But right now there are no active discussions going on with the Diocese of Providence, which doesn't exactly surprise me either. It's probably, it is likely that won't happen until Judge Smith approves the settlement with Prospect and Angel. So that piece will be resolved and done, and then it will be the discussions with the diocese. Mike, you're still.
Yeah,
off.
just one more question. Is there any precedence for a state like Rhode Island to step in and help bail out a bankrupt pension plan?
There is no precedent.
On his back.
So, you know, that had been discussed early on, or at least that question had been asked early on. And there is no precedent for that. Not only is there no precedent for that in Rhode Island, I don't think there's a precedent for that in most states. There's a difference with a municipal pension. I think that there is evidence of that in the past on a municipality. But for what is essentially a private pension, no, there's nothing that I'm aware of. That's what that's why we made the election with the PBGC, because that is the insurer of pensions. So if they fail, so the attempt is to get into their coverage. So if anything were to happen between now and that point, that then they would come in. That's the whole point of paying those premiums.
So maybe we could start a GoFundMe campaign.
Maybe. Any other questions? No question. Oh, wait,
Hello.
Joan. Go ahead. Is Joan Bryden? I see your hand up.
Okay, well, Joan Bryden's husband.
Okay.
I'm referring to the early April summary of partial settlement, page 5, where it says the partial settlement calls for a total payment of $30 million. But then it goes on to say that $27,250,000 comes from Prospect, and then Angel picks up the other $2,750,000.
Yeah, we already know that.
Right at the bottom of that page 5, it says the agreement provides for $4 million of Prospect's contribution to be allocated to the purchase of membership interest in Prospect Charter Care, owned by CCCB, and then continue on page 6, and $1 million will be allocated to the release of CCCB's other claims against Prospect.
Yep.
So if you subtract that 4 million, 1 million, the 27,250,000 comes down to 22,250,000 from Prospect.
Nope, that's not what that means. Is that they are paying 27,250,000, and there are a number of different issues. So they are allocating a portion of that money to certain disputes. So, for example, on the ownership interest of the hospitals of CCCB, there's depending on how you look at it and how you deal with it, there's a 15% ownership interest that CCCB had in the Prospect entities, in the hospitals. And so what Prospect, the settlement says, we're going to pay you $27.25 million. And of that 27.25 million, consider 4 million of that to be the purchase of the 15% ownership interest. And consider 1 million of it to be the consideration to release certain claims. So it's not that you take that money out, it's just what it is allocated for. So it's all the settlement, but there are many claims and many issues that are in the settlement. And so they have to monetize, they have to put a monetary value on that, because every aspect of the settlement is a contract, and a contract needs consideration, needs a financial payment. So they take the 27 million and they say 2 million is for this piece and 10 million is for that piece and 4 million is for that. And it all adds up at the end of the day to 27.25 on Prospect side.
Okay, one other thing, on page 10, it refers to the hypothetical example. If the diocese defendants did settle, it's my understanding that whatever they settled for, this $30 million settlement would be subtracted from that settlement. If they settled for, say, 32 million, the 30 million would be subtracted from that 32 million. So the net settlement would only be 2 million.
Well,
Based upon the hypothetical on page 10. You explained this at one time at the meeting, but
I don't have it in front of me, so I can't read it, but
okay, all right.
the diocese is not part of this settlement. So no part
No,
of,
I know that.
yeah, no part of this settlement will impact whatever ends up happening with the diocese. It's not
So-
that the diocese is not going to get credit for what Prospect and Angel paid any more than they're going to get credit for what the old hospitals and the Charter Care Foundation got. If I enter into a settlement, just to use the number you gave, of 32 million with the diocese, it's my expectation that they are going to write a check for 32 million, that they don't get any credit for anything on that. So I'll look at that hypothetical again.
Yeah, page
I haven't
10 of
seen
that
it in
statement.
a little while. And if my interpretation after reading it is different, then I'll shoot an email to everybody.
Last but not least, how much are they paying out each month?
How much
Yeah.
are who paying out?
The pension plan.
We are
What-
paying out, it's a little under $1 million a month.
Okay, and you said that we have 67 million plus another 23
Yeah,
for a total of
Smith-
90.
Yep, if Judge Smith approves the settlement, which I believe he will,
Okay,
then come mid-July, we'll have, or probably more like mid-August, early September, we'll have an additional 23 million in the account to put it to.
so we've got roughly 90 months left then.
Well, there's also interest that the money is earning
Oh,
because it's
okay.
invested. So we're getting at about, right now, we're probably, I'd have to look, but I think the return is somewhere about 7% on the money right now.
Wow.
So if you take the 67 million that's in there right now and do an annual rate of return of about between 5 and 7%, that money gets added in, and then money for benefits gets taken out. So it's a $12 million, $13 million a year draw on the plan, but that's bolstered by about $6 or $7 million in investment income.
So we're good for another 8 or 9 years.
But based on that, it goes a little bit more complicated than that, but yes, that type of math is accurate.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Any other questions? If there are no other questions, then I am going to sign off. I want everybody to have a very happy remainder of their week. Enjoy the warm weather. I think on Wednesday it's supposed to be about 82 or something like that, and Sunday 85. So I expect to see everybody at the beach on Sunday. But enjoy. If anything does happen, I will call one of these meetings. One of the benefits of the Zoom meetings is we can call them on very short notice. We don't have to rent out the place. So if anything comes up, then I will call another one of these, and otherwise we'll be on the same schedule for the next meeting as we typically are. Have a good night, everybody.